Three, two, one. I need one of those. Klappe die erste. What's a, new
Maybe
take?
it's not a clapper. Yeah.
All right, take one.
Fun. Welcome to Culture Clash Parenting, the podcast where Astrid and Marissa share their joys and challenges of raising kids in foreign lands.
Welcome to episode 9, where we started talking about school and the differences between France and Germany versus the United States last time, and what would be a school day without lunch? Or breakfast, or however long your school day is going to be. So, um, in just kind of chatting about it before, we realized how different it is. And so we're calling this one daringly School Lunches, Crêpe versus Crap.
I love that title. I'm very proud of us for that one.
Yes.
Yeah. So,
especially since Chocolat is tomorrow. And so that's really where we came up with it, just so you guys know. And also, this is our first episode that we are hoping to put on YouTube, so bear with us.
it's the end of my night here as we're recording this, and it's freezing cold. So, hence the look. For those of you who haven't, I love my scarf. For those of you who haven't listened to earlier episodes, we talked about Chandeleur in the holiday episode. Chandeleur is also Candlemas, and in France, it's also known as Crêpe Day because we eat crêpe with Nutella. And so that's where the title
Nutella Day.
It's Nutella Day. And interestingly, I was telling Astrid, I had just learned that February 1st, which is the day that we're recording this, is International Ice Cream for Breakfast Day. So wish I had known that before because I did not eat ice cream for breakfast this morning. Might have to make tomorrow ice cream for breakfast and crêpe day.
And she tells me this at 1:00 in the
I know. I'm a good friend. Your waistline will thank me later. So speaking of waistlines and health and meals, what did your kids eat at school this week, Astrid?
What did my kids eat at school this week?
Yeah.
Honestly, because my kids go back and forth between different houses, I can tell you that they ate, when they came from my house, they ate leftovers both times. So I just gave them leftovers from whatever I cooked the night before. And if they had school lunches, I would assume that my daughter probably had a sandwich of sorts, and my son probably had Bosco sticks and mac and cheese, just because he really likes that. And he tends to right now make pretty unhealthy choices when it comes to food. Not that there are that many super healthy choices around. I actually asked my daughter what I gave them leftover pizza one day, and she said, "Oh," and I said, "Okay, well, why don't you just add a salad?" She's like, "Salad's really not good. I mean, it's sort of kind of fresh, but it's really not that great." So
the salad bar at school is not it's more fast food salad than
yeah, and lots of iceberg salad. I remember having that at college too, though. Lots of iceberg and ranch dressing. And they do have a nacho bar too. So again, not so sure how great those nachos would be, or kind of on an everyday basis.
Well, and I'm hearing too, like there's a lot of choice. Like it's all these different bars and they go and like serve themselves and choose. So if they're not necessarily if they're not learning healthy eating habits at home, school's not reinforcing it if it's giving them like salad bar, sandwich bar, or nacho bar. Like I'd probably be going to the nacho bar too. Maybe not
Same.
Same. Yeah, and this is why like we came up with this episode, right? Because that is definitely not how meals are here in school. So first of all, like you don't have a choice um, of bringing food from home. Like you either go home for lunch or you eat in the canteen in the cafeteria, whatever is on the menu that day. So I asked my kids what was on the menu this week. Zachary, my younger one, comes home for lunch. So also not making the healthiest of choices. He, like Julian, was eating mac and cheese and ramen for lunch. Um, but I did look to see what was
That's all right.
yeah. Yeah. He did have carrot sticks and cucumber slices because that's part of our rule here too, is they have to have some vegetables before they go back to school. But I did look up the menu for what he would have eaten had he eaten at school this week. And so I'll just read it. This is just from Thursday. The options were surimi mayo mayonnaise, so like a you're right, surimi salad, saucisse végétarien, so veggie dogs, lentilles, lentils, and then cheese and compote or
Applesauce.
applesauce, thank you, as the dessert. And then on Friday, it was a starter of a tarte au fromage, so like a cheese tart. And then they could have either galette végétarien, so like a vegetarian patty, or steak haché, which is hamburger without the bread, just the meat, with a side of broccoli, and then crêpe for dessert. So
In preparation of chandeleur.
in
Because it's also
preparation for genre, exactly. So that's two meals at the collège, at the middle school. And then at the lycée, at the high school where my son is, on Wednesday, I just looked at Wednesday and Thursday. Wednesday was uh, Lunar New Year. So they had spring rolls as a appetizer, and then um, rocket, what is that? Arugula, beet, and mango salad, or vegetable samosas. Then they had chicken wings or chicken, lemon chicken, and uh, fried rice, and then exotic fruit salad for dessert.
because of
And
Lunar New Year, though.
right,
That's not a typical menu in a French
no,
lycée.
but you still have like the multiple courses, right?
Right. Yeah.
And
And they're
then
all smaller portions than what the kids got at the nacho bar, I'm pretty sure.
exactly, totally. And then on Thursday, they had fennel with tuna salad, ham, or um, a salmon and lentil salad. Then the main course was a fish fillet of cod or duck with olives
Yeah.
with a side dish of either bulgur um, or and gratin au chou-fleur, so cauliflower gratin.
Yeah.
And then dessert options were flan or tarte au citron, a lemon tart or flan. So still four courses, but with a vegetable and pretty healthy options. And Owen did say that he really enjoyed. They were the last serving of students who went, and so they got to like go back for seconds. Uh,
There were leftovers.
there were leftovers. So yeah, so that's the the difference. That's the difference, folks, right there. Nacho bar or like uh blanquette du dos blanquette du dos du collant. So there you go.
Um, Now, in defense of the American school system, or not, I don't know how defensible that really is, but for all of that, your different courses, how much time did Owen have to eat this?
He has, so Owen has, they're supposed to give them an hour. By law, they're supposed to have no less than an hour for lunch in high school or an hour and a half in middle school. But by the time there's 4,000 kids in their school, so in Owen's high school, so by the time like they swipe their card, get in, he says they have about 40 minutes to like get their food, eat, and then go to the next class.
So about twice as long as my kids have for food.
Yeah.
While still having to get in line and do their fingerprint or whatever they have to do these days, and pile up the nachos or the salad and go sit down and eat it.
They're probably like
Yeah,
eating from
there's
the
a
bar
difference.
to the chair, like looking for the table,
Yeah.
eating, standing up. Yeah. Yeah, it's different.
And what very different. I mean, back in my day, we didn't even have lunch at school in Germany because school was over so early. So you had like a 20-minute break. It was also only 20 minutes, about as much as my kids get here. But it was 10:35 to 10:55 in the morning, and you had usually had a sandwich, or my mom would put I don't know, an apple with it and a sandwich of sorts, and you sat and ate that, and then you went back to school, but you were out of there by 1:15 in the afternoon.
Is that every day?
So, yeah, it's certainly it was noon the first couple of years, like elementary school, and it's about 8 to noon. Then fifth through, I don't know, eighth grade, it's usually like 8 to 1, right about. Ours was 8:10 to 1:15. Some schools went to 1:20, but then it started going up more to 2 o'clock, 1 or 2 days a week. And nowadays they do go to 4 p.m., which is why they're now serving lunch to, I think, 2 days a week. But they have to make up for the hours that Germany no longer has school on Saturdays. I still went to school on Saturdays, which is kind of nice actually, because you got out early during the week, and then just 2 or 3 Saturdays a month, you went from 8 to noon. It actually 20 of noon, we were back out of there, so you still had the whole Saturday afternoon, but you didn't have to sit as long during the week. I kind of liked it, but that's changed. Either way, though, we had 20 minutes to eat something, and it was even enough to go outside and get something from a bakery down the street. So it was still enough time to do that, but there was no like healthy plant meal if your parents didn't give you anything healthy. Eh.
Yeah. Yeah, I think what's really interesting right here is that, I mean, so in some schools, they actually cook the food on the premises, which it kind of depends on where you are located. But for like Owen School, uh, it's partially cooked off-site and then brought in a truck, and then they finish cooking it in the cafeteria kitchen before they serve
It's
it.
not so bad though.
So it's not that bad. Um, but yeah, I mean, but they have these really long days. Like, so I think we were just talking about this too, that here the day is so long that the fact that they have a healthy meal, and especially the teenagers who are gonna eat because they're hungry and maybe a little bit less picky,
Right.
they need the energy, and they can still go out for sure. There's a couple of days where Owen has a good like 2 hours, and he and his friends will go out for lunch instead of eating at the cafeteria. Um, and again, probably not making the healthiest choices. They go to the kebab place, or they go to like the hamburger place or pizza place. Um, but yeah, I mean, these are growing kids who like are burning energy really quickly and need to, have dietary requirements.
Refuel.
Refuel. They need to refuel. Um, so I was more worried, I think, as a parent who had my children were really picky. Zach is still picky, which is partly why he comes home. He also um, is highly sensitive and has misophonia, so he has he doesn't, the sound of silverware on plates gives him like all sorts of heebie-jeebies. And so he just felt like he couldn't,
Really? I didn't know that.
yeah, like he couldn't sit in the cafeteria and eat with all these other kids, without,
See, he wouldn't have that problem here. Everybody eats with their fingers.
there you go. That's,
So no need for the.
oh yeah, here they're very much about like teaching them very early to use the silverware. Um, but yeah, so like it is a very, they've always had, even when they were picky, it was still like, you have to try a bite of everything. Like when they were little, it was like, you have to try a bite of everything that's on your plate. Um, One thing that has changed is this like,
But that's generally not a bad
yeah, no,
thing.
I think it's a great thing. Like we would do that at home too. They're allowed to, yeah, I think you taught me like it's not my favorite. Like they have to eat it and they're allowed to say it's not my favorite, but they still have to eat it. Like you're not allergic to it, it's not going to kill you. You got to try it. And then you can say it's not my favorite. Um,
Well, we used to let them pick out one thing that they didn't like in terms of the veggies, because kids' veggies they don't always like all of them the same amount. So I would usually put more than one different veggie into any dish that I would make, and then if they didn't like one, they could sort that out, but they'd still have to eat the other one because I was interested in getting some vitamins at least into them.
Totally. I have a friend who actually like she has a lot of kids as well, and she actually built a salad bar in her kitchen, and that's the kids come in and they have to take, I forget if it's like three or four, but they have to pick like a certain number of things from the salad bar uh, every day when they have their meal.
My
Uh,
French friend in this town, she does this with her kids. Her kids make their own dinners, and they have to pick a fruit, a veggie, and whatever the main course is. And she just cuts it all up in the beginning of the week or something and has it in the fridge, and they can pick whatever. And they can eat carrots 2 days in a row. It doesn't matter. They just need to have a veggie and a fruit next to their main course on the plate.
yeah, yeah, I like that. I mean, I think when you have a system at home that is more similar to the system at school, I think it does make it easier, right? Like it was much easier to tell my kids, you have to try this at home when at school they had to try it too. And
Yeah.
whereas I mean, Owen was only 2 when we moved here, but they're obviously at daycare in Colorado, they didn't have that rule, right? Like they brought their own food from home, but they didn't have to eat if they weren't hungry. And then it was harder at home to kind of get him to sit down and eat if he was distracted by something or wanted to do something. And so we did have a lot of free range meals where like the food was on the table and he could just kind of come and pick um and eat what he wanted
Free
to.
range meals.
It
I've
was
never heard that.
it was
That's very cool.
right. It's like the cow just going from like one patch of grass to another. Like, oh, I'll take the carrot stick over here, and then like I'm gonna go to this bowl. And um, but yeah, like if I really wanted him to eat more, it was easier to have the plates someplace where he wasn't strapped into a chair and at a table. And so it was harder for him, I think, when we moved here and he started school and he had to like sit at the table, use a fork and knife and try everything. And right, like he was still very picky and very picky and very picky, but now he eats everything and like goes back for seconds when there's like fillet of fish. Like, so
It
no,
was not poisson pané.
yeah, and it's not
I
poisson
remember it,
pané.
it was his favorite joke when he was like, what, 5?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Yeah. That was the first joke he made in French. Uh, he made up himself, or I don't know if he made it up himself, but he came home and told us that he made it up himself was, what do you call a fish that can't smell? poisson pané, because that means like fish sticks. Um,
Yeah, in German it's very similar. It's a panierter fish. Like if you're, breading something and frying, if it's breaded, basically it's paniert.
yeah.
But of course, you can't say keine Nase. Like that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, no, no, no. I don't
Pané
know.
means no nose, so hence the joke. Um, yeah. And when you so you mentioned like your mom would make you a sandwich or like an plus or minus an apple, and you could go out to the bakery. And I know you said that when Francie was in Germany, she didn't eat at the cafeteria there.
No, she made food at home, brought food. Yeah, because she said you had to like pay up front for the month or whatever, and she wasn't going to eat there all the time. So she never tried it. I do remember at university in Germany, it was very much like you walked in and you had all the different stations, kind of like how big universities in this country are too. But here, at least the ones that I've visited, or certainly my college was a small liberal arts school, and we had one cafeteria and you went through the same line with everybody. And then you could choose between pretty much hamburger, pasta, or sandwich. But at bigger schools that I've visited, you could go to almost like mini restaurant, almost like the food court at a mall. So you had like your pizza station, and then you had your Chinese food, um, and that's not how, at least the University of Düsseldorf, which is where I attended for a while, you did have several different places, but it was still like one line that you went through, and then you could, and it was little portions. So you had like, oh, I'll take some pasta. Okay, you get one little square that had whatever, whether you chose the whole wheat or the white pasta. And then, oh, here's another little cup that has the sauce in it, whichever sauce you choose. And then you kind of create it on your own. And you take a piece of fruit and you paid for a thing. Like it was, I don't know, 70 Pfennig back then, dating myself, that's how old I am, for the pasta, and like 55 Pfennig for the pudding afterwards, or whatever it was. So,
Did you have to pay
but
up
that was
front?
university.
Like, did
No,
you?
no, almost like at IKEA. You make your tray and you go up there, and then they take off everything that you had, and then you paid.
Did you have like a card, like a student ID that it went to, or did you like actually have to pay with cash every time? Like, so you had to know how much you were spending because you had to pay them.
Yes, yes, and all cash, because back then students didn't really carry credit cards. I mean, and no, we didn't have student IDs. I'm sure they do now, as so much more has become automated. But yeah, back then we did not. We didn't have student IDs. I certainly didn't have one.
I remember when I was 16 and spent a month in France as like an exchange student, and the lycée that my partner went to, the Cantine was open for breakfast, lunch, and dinner because it was a big lycée, my son's school as well. Like I said, there's 4,000 kids because it's lycée and then also post graduation um, students as well. And so there's a dormitory and kids come from all over the region to go to school there. And I remember going and having breakfast and just being so blown by the quality of the like croissants and the like cheese and the ham, and it was like a
A
hotel.
real breakfast,
Yeah.
a
It
hotel breakfast.
was like a hotel breakfast. But you also at the time, I mean, again, dating myself, this was in the Franc phase of France pre-Euro. And
World people.
yeah. And and so yeah, so you would pay. And I remember the biggest thing, and my son and I were talking about this recently, was the vending machine. Like there was a hot chocolate slash coffee vending machine.
It all went through the same pipe too. You just click the button, and then if somebody had coffee before, your hot chocolate tastes a little bit like coffee.
Totally.
But it
Um,
was also your video stopped. The
yeah,
video stopped for a second, just so you know. Um, it was, but it was also just 50 cents. I mean, it was like super cheap.
yeah.
Put your little cup, like the cup would fall down first, and then the liquid would start pouring out. Yeah, apparently, Marienberg doesn't no longer has that, says Francis. I was like, what? She says, yeah, you had a kiosk down there. I'm like, no, we didn't have a kiosk. I said, that was a vending machine. She says, oh, yeah, no vending machine.
No, they still have the vending machines at, well, still, Owen School has the vending machines. I'm sure they're still the same ones from the 1990s. He says they rarely are ever work. And
They've been there since the 1990s.
probably, but like we were talking about, it's a swipe. So it's like you put it's sans contact, like you put your credit card in to pay for it. Nobody has it doesn't take cash anymore.
That's because they got rid of the phone.
Yeah.
They
Whereas
were changing.
I remember in like this huge debate when they put soda machines into our cafeteria when I was in elementary school, and there was a big debate because they didn't want the elementary school kids to have access to the soda machines, so they were off during like when the young kids were in the cafeteria, and then they would turn them on so that like in between classes, if you were a high school student, you could go into the cafeteria and grab a soda from the soda machine. Um,
Interesting.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, it kind of makes sense to not want the first graders all hyped up on the
yeah.
on Mountain Dew or something.
I'm sure the teachers were equally on board with the parents complaining about that if they did have a kid come in after, an 8-year-old who just had a whole can of Mountain Dew sitting down in class. But yeah,
In that city.
it's definitely different. It is definitely a different and I think there's still when I talk to my kids about what the environment is, it's still very chaotic, right? Even though they have more time, it's still like lots of noise and
Right.
everybody's, you know, um, trying to find the table to sit with their friends. Like there's still that sort of on a social level, the cafeteria is still the place where there's the pecking order and the cliques finding their seats. But in terms of the quality of food, one of the things that we were talking about, which kind of made us want to talk about this as well, is one of the things here in France is they don't have replacements, and so if somebody goes on sick leave, it takes a really long time to get a person back into that position. And so for at the beginning of this year and the end of last year, I'm on the PTA, and we were hearing from a lot of parents that their kids were complaining about the Cantine food and how the food was not as good as it was before. And they were asking what happened. And it turned out that the head chef was on sick leave, and uh, and there wasn't a replacement, so it was kind of chaotic. So the food wasn't being cooked with the same rigor or oversight, and as a result, it wasn't as good, and the kids were not happy about it, and uh, they were on sick leave for a very long time. Actually, like I said, Zach doesn't go back, so I don't doesn't eat lunch there, so I don't know if the person's back. I haven't heard any complaints in a while, but it was a good many months that we kept hearing these complaints about the food getting worse and worse. And I'm sure that was like the people who were working underneath that person was like, we don't know, like this is out of our experience league, right? This is like this is not our job, and now we're doing the job of more people because there's no replacement. So a little bit more
Right.
chaos.
But that's also, it's harder to replace somebody in Europe generally because it's all trained jobs. It's not just on the job training like it is in the United States. It's very, very much, in order to be a head chef at a school cafeteria, you have to have what, a 2 year, 3 year apprenticeship. You have to have gone to some culinary school. You have to have proven that you can put the menus together to feed the kids, you know, not not fries every day, but roti. And then it's, I'm sure there's a lot more training to it than would be for an equivalent position in the United States, which is why here, like, just call in a sub.
Yeah.
I could do it. So,
Yeah. Yeah. I
yeah,
think there's
anybody can slap the sandwiches together. Yeah. Or throw the Bosco sticks into the fryer. It's pretty easy.
it is. And also, I mean, I think you and I talk about this a lot too, right? Like it's such a shame because the people who choose to do that are doing a job that a lot of us wouldn't want to do. Um, and certainly like it's hard enough for me to cook for three people. Like besides myself, right? Like to kind of
Okay, you don't cook
decide
for
like
yourself?
yeah, like what does everybody else want to eat? I need to take them into account. Um, and then especially with Zach's um like with his hearing stuff, like, to be like, okay, what, how long is he going to sit at the table? What those sorts of things too. Make sure there's food that isn't going to trigger him. And so yeah, so I do, I mean, hats off, chef's hat off to people who choose to take that job on because I can't imagine how exhausting and it must be to work in that setting when you're underpaid, when you're not appreciated, when you have hundreds of kids that are coming through. Um, yeah,
Well,
like
and also you're the frontline person, especially in this country, who has to tell the kid, I'm sorry, I can't serve you because your lunch balance hasn't been paid. Now, you have one, you and I are empaths, so I could never then not give the child food. And now there's this hungry, like I see when my middle schoolers are hungry, they're hangry. So now you have this hangry person standing across from you. You feel bad because you want to feed them. You can't because the administration doesn't allow you to. Sometimes they find a way, but it's just really tough. Whereas I don't know. And how is it in France? You automatically pay for it by sending your kid to the school. Is taxes paying for it? Well, how does that work?
so both like taxes subsidize part of the meal and then there's also um the money given to the state from taxes, but also like a subvention. So like the on top of what your taxes pay for, the federal budget for schools, part of that goes to paying for meals. And
And if
then
you pay out of pocket, they are much cheaper.
right.
So
And so
no
I
school
think,
lunch is 6.75 like it is here.
no, I think I actually looked recently and I think per student in the um college level, I believe. I'll have to go look it up again, but we just got like our town magazine where they were talking about the budget. And I believe at the middle school level, it was something like $11 per meal, of which eight of those dollars is subsidized. So like you're paying on average, like some again, like you're paying on average about €3. Like a parent is paying about €3 per kid per day. But then even within that, there's subsidization. So depending on how much money you make, that number goes up and down. So
That's right.
we might pay a little bit more because we make a little bit more money. But the other thing, kind of different to what you're saying, is the kids never know that, right? So a bill comes at the end of the month for the number of meals that your kid ate or that your kid is enrolled for. So you can enroll your kid to either eat every meal, every lunch at school or a couple of days a week, um, depending on what your schedules are. And so the bill comes at the end of the month, and because of it, yeah, like the lunch surveillance, like the people who monitor lunchtime and the lunch and the people who work in the cafeteria are not having that conversation with the kids. And if there's a family that can't pay, they have the opportunity to, connect with the school and say, like, I can't pay this. And every school has a little bit every year, get some money set aside for um,
Those
uh,
cases.
for those cases. And there's a meeting a couple of times a year where you go over like how much does this family owe? Like, what's the family situation? Like, should we use our budget to help them? But it's all after the fact, like the kid's eaten. That feels like it would be, yeah, I'm like you. It would be so hard to be like, I'm sorry, you can't eat that because you
Well,
have
and here we do have free and reduced lunch programs as of this point. And they, but you have to apply for it. Um, Even if I wanted to, I could possibly get a reduced lunch fee for my kids, but then they would only be eating Bosco sticks. So I'm gonna continue making them food.
yeah. Yeah. Um, so as we're wrapping up this episode, I'm curious what um what are some of your favorite meals that you remember eating? Like if there was one or two things that like you brought to school that you could have eaten every single day, since we're talking about eating Bosco sticks and mac and cheese every day. Like if you were in charge of your meals every single day, what would you have wanted the cafeteria or your mom to put in your lunch or snack box?
We all pretty much ate sandwiches because one, again, it was right before 11 o'clock in the morning, so it was more like a second breakfast. I would have enjoyed more rolls. Like it was usually bread sandwiches. Um, but I had friends who had like just a roll with butter and salami, and that sounded really good to me. But then again, my mother put like hard-boiled egg and cucumber and lettuce and cheese and ham or something on the sandwich a lot of times, which was amazing. I didn't always get to keep those. I would sometimes, especially in fifth and sixth grade when I still had text, basically a fax class where you learn to knit and crochet and stuff. I can't knit. I can't do any of that. So but there were always one or two students who were really good at it and really fast, and they really liked my sandwiches. So that's how I got through those classes. So thanks, Mom, for making me those sandwiches.
They were payments for my
But yeah, so that was what I was used to, and it was totally fine. Like she would put something different on every day. I don't think I ever had 2 days in a row where it was salami because she just knew better, and that's why I insist on giving my children lunch because that way I know every day it's something different and different nutrition and stuff. What about you? Because you went to school here, so you went to school in the United States in a time where tomato ketchup was classified as the vegetable. So you go.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I remember like Taco Tuesday and Pizza Friday, and those were probably the days that I remember wanting to eat, right? Like we would get the menu for the week, and I'd be like, oh, I want to buy, like, I want to have school lunch on this day and that day. But I'm such a meat person, and I was always a meat person. I really liked roast beef sandwiches. And when my mom used to work in Africa, and when she would travel, my dad would make the sandwiches, and he would put like full on like Jewish deli, like a whole pound of roast beef on the sandwich. And my mom, was always like trying to save money. And so she'd put like a little bit of roast beef, or like if we had a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, it'd be like a little bit of peanut butter. Like my dad would make sandwiches that like the peanut butter glued your mouth shut.
We have the same problem in our house. If I, because I, like your mom, I like, okay, well, two slices of ham should be good enough, right? So I buy 8 slices of ham to send the kids to school with each of them 2 slices. And then I am late getting up, and James is starting to make sandwiches, and he's got 3, 4 slices of the first two. And I'm like, what are you going to do with the last two?
Totally. We gotta make this last the whole week too. So I would say, I mean, for me, those, and still when I go back to this to visit, I love going to the deli and getting those sandwiches that like where you have to break your jaw to eat the sandwich. Like you just have to open it as wide as possible. And but then like my what's the word? Like guilty pleasure was when we were in high school, there was a like coffee shop around the corner from our school, and they did hot buttered bagel with 2 slices of American cheese. And it was just like, it was like grilled cheese, but on a bagel. And it was so good. And you could like feel the grease on your face for the rest of the day. Like that's, that it like warmed your whole body.
Oh, right.
And you're right. Like, and so that was my guilty pleasure when I didn't bring lunch from home, was to go to George's and get a hot butter bagel with 2 slices of American cheese. Shout out to all my Hunter friends, because I think that was what we all did. Like we would all go and get that for lunch, or go to get pizza. But like I said, we were not making healthy choices when we wouldn't make choices for ourselves. But those deli type sandwiches, that's what I would have had every single day. So it sounds like I needed to grow up in Germany and have a mom like yours, at least sandwich wise, who made me different sandwiches every day that had lots of different things on it. And because that sounds delicious, eggs and tomato and lettuce and cucumber.
Yeah, I try to make that for my kids too, but most of them don't like that anymore. Francie does now that, especially now that she spent a year in Germany. She will put anything on a sandwich. The other ones, they don't even want cucumber on there anymore. Well, how? You get nothing to bite into, because I'm only giving you 2 slices of ham, so you might as well
Right.
add some other stuff. Oh man, I'm
Oh.
terrible mother. Terrible. Yeah, I think we've pretty much covered the differences between school lunches, or between, dads and moms.
Totally.
I think we got that all covered. And I hope you enjoy your crepe tomorrow for Chandeleur.
Oh, I'm very, very excited to we already have a whole plan to make crepe. And then I'm actually going, a friend of mine, it's her son's birthday party. So I'm gonna go help her uh navigate and facilitate a birthday party for a bunch of 7-year-olds. So I'm sure I'm gonna be eating even more crepe when I when I leave my house. So it's just gonna be an all crepe day. But yes,
I wonder if I can extend that to next weekend.
Oh, for sure. It's your birthday.
Because it's Cora's 4th birthday. So I could invite her friends and make it a Chandeleur party.
Yeah, for sure. It's really
good
easy.
idea. I'll think about it.
It's quick. You make them ahead of time and then keep them in the oven so they stay warm. And you can even make like a crepe cake. Crepes, they're the best. They're better than crap. So
Far better than crap. That's for
better than crap. So thank you for listening to this episode. As always, as we wrap up, we would love to hear your stories about your favorite meals at the cafeteria as you were growing up, what your kids are eating now.
You don't like it.
Yeah, your least favorite meals.
Right.
And yeah,
tell us about your kids' schools. If they have really good menus and they're in the United States, I want to hear about it because I might move.
Totally. And as always, don't forget to share this podcast or like and subscribe.
I think that's it, right?
Yeah.
Bye.